this, of course, has implications for nutrition, and in particular for a very frequent policy that we find in the developing world, which is food prices subsidy for greater nutrition. So for example, in Indonesia, we have the Rakshin program. If you remember Pak Solin's stories, he got some free rice from the Rakshin program. In India, India just introduced the Right to Food Act and a subsidy scheme for rice in rice-consuming regions. So India has something called the public distribution system where they distribute food to households at reduced prices, to poor households at reduced prices. Egypt spent something like 3% of its GDP on food subsidies. So food subsidies is a very important part of the help to the poor in developing countries. It's also a very important part of our meaning the US aid to poor countries is in the form of food aid, directly food, which we send to poor countries. Why are we spending a lot of our aid in terms of food aid?
Well, when we want to produce a lot of food and stuff, so it's easier for us to just take the insurance and
Yes, so part of the reason why a lot of our aid is in the form of food aid is that it's also aid for our own farmers. And it's a way of kind of buying the excedent and sending them out. So when the weather has been good in the US and the harvest is very big, a lot of more food aid is being spent all over the world. But with that aside, this is a policy that many countries have to try to subsidize the price of food. But if we have something like the Giffen Good, what may happen when people, if you make the price of the staple less high, if you make the price of the staple lower? Yes?
Then they'll spend their other income on other sorts of stuff, not food.
Yes, you might find that something like this happen, which is instead of eating the price of rice has now gone down. Instead of eating more rice, you have less rice and more shrimps, and maybe also more cell phones. So the amount of calories that you are getting, if rice is indeed a Giffen Good, the increase in the calories you are getting from a decline in the price of rice might actually not be very high. So in fact, it might even be negative, because if the income effect is sufficiently large, it might outdo again the price effect. And we might find that as we make food cheaper, people eat less instead of eating more. And that's exactly what they find in Yunnan, where rice was a Giffen Good. They find that as you decrease the price of rice, people eat fewer calories, not more. So this would be the very standard. This would be the very standard pro-poor policy in your average developing countries, to try to subsidize the staple. And the justification of this policy will typically be in the form of we need to increase the calorie consumption because people are trapped in poverty trap, like our friend Pak Solin. But in fact, if you look at this for this urban household in China, you find the opposite, which is subsidizing the price of rice actually lead to fewer calories consumed. And it's not because people gain in terms of other micronutrients, though we don't have all the other micronutrients, but we get fewer proteins being consumed as well. So this is what they found in Yunnan, but they don't have it in Gansu. So it's not to say that it happens necessarily everywhere, but it is something that might happen. So it is not at all a given that a reduction in the price of food will lead to an increase in nutrition. On the bright side, it also means that it's not necessarily a given that the current increase in the food prices that we are observing will lead to people eating fewer calories, because it might have this perverse effect of making them poorer and therefore leading them to eat more of calories. So what?
Yeah, I was wondering, isn't this something which would depend a lot on food habits? Because, for example, if you eat shrimps may not be very calorie rich. But in India, people eat a lot of lentils, and the next thing that they eat to rice is dal, which is actually very full of protein. So eating less rice, and if they spend more on protein, lentils, that might be good.
Right. So this is of course completely dependent on what you substitute with. If you substitute rice with lentils, actually it might be more nutrition, have more iron, more nutrition, etc. So we might find an increase in nutrition due to subsidizing the price of rice. So the only point here was not to say that it has to be the case, was to say that it doesn't have to be the case that subsidizing the price of rice will lead to more rice and more calories being consumed. Now let's look at India precisely. So before that, it's something that should surprise you when you put together this Jensen-Miller result and what we had before in India. We found that the richer household when a household that are 10% richer, eat about 3.5 more calories. But the Jensen-Miller result, what does it suggest about the income effect? If we are finding that when the price of rice decreases, you eat less, not more. What the income effect has to be? It has to be negative. So on the one hand, I showed you positive income effect, maybe not very large, but certainly positive for India. On the other hand, I'm showing you price effect in China, which suggests that the income effect have to be negative, and in fact, very negative. So how can this be? How can we have the two things together? So the first thing is that in India, we were comparing different households. We were not comparing the same household to which I give more money. So, and different households are different. Maybe the households that are a bit richer, they're also more educated and they understand the value of nutrition, and that's why they eat more. So the ideal experiment would be to give people a little bit more money, really literally do that, and see whether they spend this money on food or not. And that would allow us to estimate the income effect. To my knowledge, no one has done that. It's a little bit difficult to parachute helicopter drops of money on people. Not impossible, but it's not been done, I don't think. So what we have when we looked at the India curve, we find that people who have more money eat more, but it may be because they have different tastes, or it might be because they eat more and therefore they're more productive, therefore they have more money. So the opposite relationship. So that may be an overestimate. That positive estimate, which was already not that high, of the income effect might have been an overestimate. And one thing that's suggested is that, and it goes back to Swati's point earlier, is when we plot the angle curve over time in India, we see something interesting, which is that we see two interesting things. Number one, all of the angle curve for the rural areas are above the angle curve for the urban areas. What do you think that would be the case? See?
The work in the rural area is like much more labor intensive, so you need to eat more to have physical strength.
Exactly. The work in rural areas is more intensive, and so they need more calories. So this is interesting that you are making this point, because this is the point you were making earlier about maybe the needs for calorie in South Africa are bigger because it's colder. So that's the first things we notice. So this we can explain. And what's the other interesting trend in this picture is that over time, the angle curves are falling down. People are eating less and less and less for the same level of income. So what happened in India over time is that, of course, people got richer. So if the angle curves had been stable, they would have eaten more. But because the angle curves are also falling down at the same time, they are eating. What happened with over time is that people are moving first across to another angle curve and then up along an angle curve. So take someone who would be at a log income of 5. 15 years later, they have a log income maybe of 5.5. But the angle curve have also moved. So now instead of eating, so take someone who is at 5, and then 15 years later, they would be, let's say, at 6. But now we need to find a 6 on a much lower angle curve. So instead of eating more, as they would have if the angle curve had become stable, we find that people in India eat less and less. So over time, the poor in India are eating less and less instead of eating more and more, which does suggest this same negative income elasticity for the country as a whole. The country is becoming richer, and those people are becoming richer, but they are eating less and less. So this now starts to make sense with the two results, where maybe the income elasticity of food consumption, not only it's not above 1, which is what we would have in a poverty trap kind of a world, but it might be negative, which is as people become richer, they, if anything, eat fewer calories.